Jake Morrison stood in the center of the Great Hall on Station Nexus Prime and looked up at the 43 alien faces staring down at him. The massive chamber stretched high above his head with curved walls that seemed to go on forever. Each alien species had their own section with seats that fit their strange bodies. Some looked like giant insects, while others seemed made of living stone. The Zilani looked almost human, but their skin was blue and their eyes were too large. The Corvin were covered in thick armor that never came off their bodies. The human ambassador had been coming to this place for 5 years now, and he thought he understood these aliens. He was wrong. Today, they would show him just how different they really were from humans. Today, they would make a choice that would change everything for both humans and aliens across the galaxy. Prime Minister Vexithara of the Zilani spoke first. Her voice was high and musical, but the words she said were not beautiful at all. She told the council that humans were too dangerous to be part of their group. She said humans fought too much and wanted to take over everything they touched. She said they moved too fast and asked too many questions. She said they could not be trusted to follow the rules that kept peace in the galaxy. General Zethmos of the Corvin Empire agreed with her words. His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. He said humans had no respect for the old ways. He said they built weapons when they should build farms. He said they explored space when they should stay on their own worlds. He said they were like a disease that would spread and destroy everything good about galactic civilization. One by one, the other aliens spoke their minds. The insect-like Thraxi clicked and buzzed about human aggression. The stone beings called Mordak spoke slowly about human impatience. Even the peaceful plant people known as Verdani said they feared what humans might become if they grew more powerful. Each species had their own reasons, but they all said the same thing. Humans had to go. Jake Morrison listened to every word and felt his heart grow heavy. He had spent years trying to build trust between humans and these alien races. He had learned their languages and studied their customs. He had attended their ceremonies and celebrated their festivals. He thought he was making progress. He thought they were becoming friends. But now he saw the truth. They had always been afraid of humanity, and now their fear was stronger than any friendship. When the last alien finished speaking, Jake Morrison asked to reply. Prime Minister Vexithara nodded and told him he could have 5 minutes to defend his species. 5 minutes to explain why humans deserved to stay in the galactic community. 5 minutes to save everything his people had worked for. Morrison spoke, clearly and calmly, even though his hands were shaking. He told them about human achievements in the 30 years since first contact. He talked about the colonies humans had built and the new worlds they had made green and fertile. He mentioned the trade agreements that had made both humans and aliens richer. He spoke about the scientific discoveries that human researchers had shared freely with all council members. He reminded them about the 3 times human ships had rescued alien crews from space disasters when no one else could reach them in time. But the aliens had already made up their minds. When Morrison finished speaking, Prime Minister Vexithara called for the vote. One by one, the species announced their choice. The Zilani voted to expel humans. The Corvin voted to expel humans. The Thraxi voted to expel humans. The vote continued around the chamber, and with each voice, Jake Morrison felt hope die a little more. When the counting ended, 38 species had voted to remove humans from the council. Only 4 species chose not to vote at all. None voted to let humans stay. The decision was final, and there would be no appeal. Humanity was no longer welcome in galactic civilization. Prime Minister Vexithara announced that all human ships must leave council space within 10 days. All human colonies in disputed areas must be abandoned. All trade agreements were canceled immediately. All communication channels would be closed. From this day forward, humans and the galactic community would have nothing to do with each other. Jake Morrison stood up slowly and looked around the chamber one last time. His voice was quiet, but every alien heard his words clearly. He told them, They were making a mistake that would cost them dearly. He said they thought human restraint was weakness, but they would learn the truth someday. He said when they finally realized their error, humans might not be listening anymore. He said they should remember this day because they would regret it for the rest of their lives. Then Jake Morrison walked out of the chamber and never looked back. Behind him, the aliens sat in silence and wondered if they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. But their pride was too strong to change their minds now. The decision was made, and humans would have to live with the consequences. What none of them knew was that the consequences would be worse for the aliens than for humanity. 38 years passed in complete silence between humans and the rest of the galaxy. The aliens went about their business and pretended humans had never existed. They removed all human names from their history books and destroyed the monuments built to celebrate first contact. Trade routes that once passed through human space were moved to avoid any chance of meeting human ships. The galactic news networks never mentioned Earth or any human colony. It was as if 4 billion humans had simply vanished from the universe. But humans had not vanished at all. They had just become invisible to alien eyes. In their corner of space, humans were busier than they had ever been before. Without alien politics to worry about, they could focus all their energy on building something. Amazing. What they built during those silent years would have shocked the aliens if they had bothered to look. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked day and night in her laboratory on Mars. She was studying something the aliens had never imagined possible. She was learning how to bend space itself using quantum energy. Her experiments started small with tiny particles that could appear in 2 places at once. Then she made larger objects do the same thing. By the 10th year of silence, she could make a whole spaceship exist in multiple locations simultaneously. By the 20th year, she could fold space so ships could travel instantly between distant stars. The aliens had always moved through space slowly using old engines that burned fuel and pushed ships forward bit by bit. Even their fastest vessels took months to travel between nearby star systems. Human ships with Dr. Vasquez's new engines could cross the entire galaxy in a matter of days. But humans kept this technology secret and made sure no alien sensors could detect their true capabilities. Engineer Tony Kim was building ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. His designs were based on lessons learned during the exile. He created vessels that could change shape during flight and adapt to any situation. His ships could become invisible when they needed to hide or grow larger when they needed to fight. He built weapons that could tear holes in reality itself and shields that could stop any attack. The new human fleet was not just better than alien ships. It was so advanced that alien technology looked like stone tools by comparison. General Alex Morgan spent the silent years turning human space into an unbreakable fortress. He built defense stations around every human world and connected them with invisible energy networks. He created sensor systems that could see anything happening within 1,000 light-years of Earth. He trained human soldiers using new fighting techniques that combined technology with tactics the aliens could never understand. By the end of the silent years, human space was the most secure place in the galaxy, even though no alien knew it existed. Captain Maya Rodriguez commanded the first of the new Titan-class warships. These vessels were 10 times larger than the biggest, alien ships, and carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. But size was not their most impressive feature. The Titan ships could phase in and out of normal space, making them impossible to target. They could fire weapons through solid matter and repair any damage instantly using self-healing metal. Rodriguez and her crew practiced combat scenarios that would have seemed like magic to alien observers. While humans were transforming their military and technology, the rest of the galaxy was having problems. Strange ships had been spotted at the edge of known space. These vessels belonged to something called the Devourers, and they were unlike any species in the Council. The Devourers did not try to communicate or trade. They simply attacked alien colonies and consumed everything they found. Planets that had been home to billions of aliens were left as empty rocks floating in space. The alien fleets that went to fight the Devourers often never returned. Those that did come back brought terrible news. The enemy ships were incredibly powerful and seemed to absorb energy from any weapon that hit them. The Devourers fought with no regard for their own lives and showed no mercy to prisoners. They were not trying to conquer alien territory. They were trying to harvest every living thing in the galaxy. President Katie Sullivan watched the alien news feeds from her office on Earth. She saw reports of burning worlds and desperate refugees fleeing to the center of the galaxy. She read intelligence reports about alien fleets being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. She knew the Devourers were moving slowly but steadily toward the core worlds where most aliens lived. She also knew they would eventually reach human space no matter what happened to the aliens, but President Sullivan did not contact the Galactic Council. The aliens had made their choice 38 years ago, and humans had accepted the consequences. If the aliens wanted human help, they would have to ask for it. And asking would mean admitting they had been wrong about humanity. Sullivan doubted. Their pride would ever let them do that. The aliens were facing their greatest crisis in galactic history, but they refused to even consider human assistance. They increased military spending and built more ships using the same old technology that had already failed against the Devourers. They held emergency council meetings and made angry speeches about fighting to the last alien. They created new alliances and signed mutual defense treaties that meant nothing when the enemy arrived. What the aliens did not do was admit they needed help. They did not acknowledge that their decision to exile humanity might have been a mistake. They certainly did not try to contact human space or ask if Earth might be willing to share technology or military expertise. Their pride was stronger than their survival instinct, and it was going to get them all killed. In human space, the preparations continued. New weapons were tested in secret. Better ships were built in hidden shipyards. Soldiers trained for battles the aliens could not imagine. Scientists made discoveries that would have changed the galaxy if anyone had bothered to ask humans what they were doing. But no one asked, and humans did not volunteer information. The silence between humans and aliens was about to be broken by something far worse than words. The first major crack in the Galactic Council appeared when the Devourers consumed 3 entire star systems in a single week. The alien fleets sent to stop them were destroyed so completely that no wreckage was ever found. Billions of alien civilians simply vanished along with their planets and everything they had ever built. The survivors who escaped in the last few ships brought stories that made even the bravest council members afraid. Prime Minister Vexithera was no longer the confident leader who had expelled humanity decades ago. She was old now, and her blue skin had turned pale with worry. The reports crossing her desk each day were worse than the ones before. Devourer fleets were appearing in multiple sectors simultaneously. They moved faster than alien scouts could track and hit targets that should have been impossible to reach. The enemy seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum damage. The Zalani military commander brought her the latest casualty reports. 47 alien worlds had been attacked in the past month. Defense fleets from 6 different species had been wiped out completely. The Devourer advance was accelerating, and the aliens had no way to slow it down. Every strategy they tried failed worse than the one before. Traditional fleet tactics were useless against an enemy that could absorb energy weapons and ignore physical barriers. General Zethmos of the Corvan Empire was dead. His final transmission from the battle above Corvan Prime showed him ramming his flagship into a Devourer vessel in a desperate attempt to stop the invasion. The collision did no visible damage to the enemy ship, but it destroyed the last symbol of Corvan military might. The proud warrior culture that had once threatened to dominate the galaxy was reduced to refugee camps on distant worlds. The council meetings became exercises in panic and blame. Species that had been allies for centuries now accused each other of cowardice and incompetence. The Thraxi claimed the Mordak were not sending enough ships to the front lines. The Verdani said the insect warriors were too aggressive and wasted resources on hopeless attacks. Everyone had theories about what was going wrong, but no one had solutions that actually worked. Commander Kex Yara was the grandson of the prime minister who had voted to expel humanity. Unlike his grandmother, he had grown up hearing stories about humans and wondering what they were really like. He had read the old reports about human rescue missions and scientific discoveries. He had studied the records of human colony worlds that had been abandoned when the exile began. The more he learned about humans, the more he questioned the Council's decision. Now Kex Yara commanded one of the few Zelani fleets still capable of fighting. His ships were patrolling the outer sectors, where devourer attacks were most common. He had seen the enemy vessels up close and watched them tear through alien defenses like they were made of paper. He had also noticed something the Council leaders were too proud to admit. The devourers were not attacking randomly. They were moving in a pattern that would eventually lead them to the galactic core, and between the devourers and the core worlds lay human space. Kex Yara began to wonder what the humans were doing while the galaxy burned around them. Surely they could see the devourer advance on their long-range sensors. Surely they understood that their own worlds would be targets eventually. Were they building defenses or preparing to flee to another galaxy entirely? Did they even care what happened to the aliens who had rejected them so long ago? The young commander tried to bring up these questions during council meetings, but the older leaders refused to discuss anything related to humanity. Prime Minister Vexithara would not even allow human space to be mentioned in official reports. As far as the council was concerned, humans had ceased to exist 40 years ago and would never be relevant again. This attitude was going to get everyone killed, but pride was more important than survival. Meanwhile, in the deep space between alien and human territory, something was happening that no council sensors could detect. Human scout ships were moving through the darkness using stealth technology that made them invisible to any alien equipment. These vessels were not exploring or mapping new trade routes. They were watching the devourer advance and gathering intelligence about enemy capabilities. Captain Maya Rodriguez commanded one of these scout missions. Her ship could observe alien battles from close range without being detected by either side. She watched devourer vessels tear apart alien fleets with weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. She saw entire planets being consumed by strange energy fields that left nothing behind but empty space. She recorded everything and sent the data back to human command centers for analysis. The intelligence reports Rodriguez gathered painted a terrifying picture. The devourers were not just another alien species with advanced technology. They were something far worse. Their ships seemed to be alive in ways that defied understanding. They could adapt to any attack and learn from every battle. They were not trying to conquer territory or capture resources. They were trying to consume all life in the galaxy and convert it into something else entirely. Dr. Elena Vasquez studied the scout reports in her laboratory on Mars. The quantum signatures from devourer vessels were unlike anything in her databases. The enemy ships existed partially outside normal space-time, which explained why alien weapons could not damage them effectively. But human quantum technology might be different. The space-folding engines and reality-manipulating weapons humans had developed might actually be able to hurt the devourers. President Katie Sullivan read the analysis reports with growing concern. The devourer advance would reach the edge of human space within 5 years if it continued at the current pace. The aliens clearly could not stop the enemy advance using conventional tactics. Something had to be done before the threat became unstoppable. But the Galactic Council still refused to acknowledge that humans existed, much less ask for help. Engineer Tony Kim was already designing weapons specifically for fighting devourers. His new ship classes could phase in and out of reality just like the enemy vessels. His quantum torpedoes could track targets across multiple dimensions. His shield systems could deflect attacks that traveled through folded space. If the aliens had swallowed their pride and asked for help, Kim could have equipped their fleets with technology that might actually work against the devourers. but no alien ever asked for human assistance. The Council continued to fight using obsolete tactics and outdated weapons while their civilizations died around them. Their pride had become a death sentence for the entire galaxy, but they could not see past their own arrogance to save themselves. The cracks in the galactic foundation were spreading, and soon everything would collapse. The galaxy reached its breaking point on a day that would be remembered forever by every surviving alien. 7 core worlds came under simultaneous attack by massive devourer fleets that appeared without any warning. These were not the isolated colonies that had been consumed before. These were the heart worlds of galactic civilization where billions of aliens lived and worked and raised their families. The enemy had somehow bypassed all the outer defenses and struck directly at the most important targets in known space. The Zalani homeworld was the first to send out distress signals. Prime Minister Vexafera watched from her capital city as the sky filled with alien ships that looked like living nightmares. The Devourer vessels were enormous and covered with what appeared to be organic growths that pulsed with dark energy. They did not land troops or demand surrender. They simply began draining all life from the planet's surface using beams of purple light that turned everything they touched into gray dust. The Corvin Military Academy world died next. The proud warrior species that had once threatened to conquer the galaxy could not even slow down the Devourer advance. Their most powerful warships were destroyed in seconds by weapons that seemed to reach through time itself. The planet that had trained generations of alien soldiers became a lifeless rock in less than 6 hours. The peaceful Verdani Garden world suffered the worst fate of all. The plant people had created a paradise of living cities where buildings were grown from trees and technology worked in harmony with nature. The Devourers consumed not just the inhabitants, but the very concept of life itself. When their harvest was complete, the world was not just dead, but somehow wrong. Space around the planet bent in ways that hurt to look at, and ships that got too close simply disappeared. Commander Kex Yara received the emergency broadcasts while patrolling a sector, 50 light-years from his grandmother's homeworld. He ordered his fleet to maximum speed, but knew they would arrive too late to help anyone. The Devourer attacks were coordinated across impossible distances and executed with precision that suggested intelligence far beyond anything the galaxy had encountered before. This was not random destruction. This was systematic extermination. This young Zalani commander made a decision that would have shocked his grandmother and violated everything the Council stood for. He opened an emergency channel and began broadcasting on frequencies that had been banned for 40 years. He was calling for help from the only species in the galaxy that might actually be able to provide it. He was calling for humans. His message was simple and desperate. He told them the galaxy was dying and billions of innocent people needed help. He admitted the Council had been wrong to exile humanity and begged for forgiveness. He said he did not care about politics or pride anymore because children were dying and worlds were burning and nothing else mattered. He asked humans to remember that aliens were people too, and some of them had never wanted humanity to leave. The transmission reached human space within minutes, thanks to quantum communication networks the aliens did not know existed. President Katie Sullivan was in an emergency meeting with her senior advisors when the message arrived. The debate that followed was fierce and emotional, with voices raised on all sides of the issue. Admiral Ben Torres wanted to ignore the alien plea entirely. He argued that humans owed the Council nothing after 40 years of exile and insults. He said the aliens had made their choice and should live with the consequences no matter how terrible they might be. He reminded everyone that the same species begging for help today had voted to expel humanity without a second thought. General Alex Morgan took a different position. He said the Devourer threat would eventually reach human space regardless of what happened to the aliens. He argued that fighting the enemy now while they were distracted with alien worlds was better than waiting for them to finish their harvest and turn their full attention to humanity. He said this was not about helping ungrateful aliens, but about protecting human lives and human worlds. Dr. Elena Vasquez presented intelligence reports that changed everything. Her analysis of devourer technology revealed that the enemy was not just consuming alien life forms. They were converting biological matter into something that existed partially outside normal reality. Each world they harvested made them stronger and more dangerous. If they were allowed to finish consuming the alien civilizations, they would become powerful enough to threaten Earth itself. Captain Maya Rodriguez argued most passionately for immediate intervention. She had seen the footage of Zilani children evacuating their homeworld while purple death beams fell around them. She reminded the Council that humanity had always fought to protect innocent people regardless of what their governments had done. She said watching civilians die while humans had the power to save them would make humanity no better than the aliens who had expelled them. The debate continued for hours, while devourer fleets systematically destroyed everything the galaxy had built over thousands of years. Reports kept coming in about new attacks and failed defenses and desperate refugees fleeing to the galactic core. The alien military was collapsing faster than anyone had thought possible, and soon there would be nothing left to save. President Sullivan finally called for a vote. The decision was close, but humanity chose to act. The aliens would get their help, but not as charity or as an attempt to rejoin galactic society. Humans would return to the galaxy as equals demanding respect for their sacrifice. The species that had once been considered too dangerous for civilization would become the saviors of that same civilization. Admiral Torres received orders to prepare Operation Redemption. The human fleet would emerge from 4 decades of secrecy and show the galaxy what they had become during the silent years. The aliens who had feared human violence were about to discover that sometimes violence was the only thing that could protect innocent life. Engineer Tony Kim activated construction protocols in hidden shipyards throughout human space. Vessels that had been built in secret using technology the aliens could not imagine began emerging from quantum storage. The fleet that assembled was larger and more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was also completely invisible to alien sensors until the moment humans chose to reveal themselves. The breaking point had arrived, and humanity was ready to prove that being expelled from galactic civilization had been the biggest mistake in alien history. The species they had rejected was about to become their salvation. The human fleet appeared above Station Nexus Prime, like ghosts materializing from empty space. One moment, the area around the galactic capital was filled with fleeing alien ships and devourer attack vessels. The next moment, it contained the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. 300 human warships had emerged from quantum space without making a sound or triggering a single alien sensor. They simply existed where nothing had been before. Admiral Ben Torres stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked out at the battle raging around the space station where humanity had been exiled 40 years ago. Devourer vessels were swarming over the alien defenses like hungry insects. Purple energy beams were cutting through station shields and tearing apart evacuation ships filled with civilian refugees. The sight made his jaw clench with anger that had nothing to do with old grudges against the Council. The alien fleet protecting Nexus Prime was in complete disarray. Ships from dozens of different species were trying to coordinate attacks using incompatible weapons and contradictory tactics. Some vessels were attempting to ram the Devourer ships, while others fired missiles that had no effect on the enemy hulls. The brave alien crews were dying by the thousands, but their sacrifice was accomplishing nothing except to delay the inevitable. Commander Kexiara was in the station's command center watching his civilization die when the impossible happened. His sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing all around the battle zone, but showed no ships at all. Then space itself seemed to fold and twist, and suddenly there were hundreds of vessels where empty vacuum had been moments before. The new ships were sleek and beautiful and completely unlike anything in the alien databases. Prime Minister Vexithara was ancient now, and her blue skin was pale with exhaustion and fear. She had been evacuating government officials when the Devourer attack began. Now she was trapped in the command center watching her people die while she waited for purple death beams to finish their work. When the human ships appeared, she thought her old mind was finally breaking under the strain of watching her civilization collapse. The communication channel crackled to life, and a human voice spoke for the first time in 40 years. Admiral Torres identified himself and his fleet, then made an announcement that shocked every alien in the system. He said humanity had returned to help defend innocent lives. He said humans would coordinate their own attacks and did not need alien permission or guidance. He said the Council could watch and learn what their species had become during the years of exile. Captain Maya Rodriguez launched her fighters from the carrier UHS Sovereign and immediately demonstrated technology that seemed like magic to alien observers. Human fighter craft moved through space in ways that violated the laws of physics. They could appear in multiple locations at once, then merge back into single vessels. They could fire through solid matter and phase in and out of reality to avoid enemy attacks. Within minutes, they had destroyed more Devourer ships than the entire alien fleet had managed in hours of fighting. The human warships opened fire with weapons that made alien technology look like primitive tools. Quantum torpedoes tracked Devourer vessels across multiple dimensions and exploded inside their hulls regardless of shields or armor. Particle beams that could cut through the fabric of space itself sliced enemy ships into pieces that fell apart at the molecular level. Energy cannons fired pure destruction that erased anything they hit from existence entirely. But the most shocking thing about the human attack was not its power, but its precision. Every shot hit its target without causing any damage to alien ships or the space station. Human weapons could somehow distinguish between friend and foe, even in the chaos of battle. The same species the aliens had feared as too violent was now protecting alien lives with surgical accuracy that bordered on the miraculous. The Devourer fleet found itself facing an enemy unlike anything they had encountered during their harvest of alien worlds. Human ships could match their ability to exist in multiple dimensions. Human weapons could hurt them despite their reality-shifting defenses. Human tactics adapted faster than Devourer learning algorithms could compensate. For the first time since beginning their galactic conquest, the invaders were outmatched. Engineer Tony Kim watched the battle from his command ship and felt satisfied with his designs. The new human vessels were performing exactly as intended. Their quantum hulls could exist in folded space where Devourer weapons could not reach them. Their adaptive shields learned from each enemy attack and became stronger. Their self-repair systems could rebuild any damage faster than it could be inflicted. The ships were not just superior to alien technology, but superior to Devourer technology as well. Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored the quantum signatures from her mobile laboratory. The space-time distortions caused by the battle were enormous, but human technology was handling them perfectly. Her reality anchoring systems kept the human ships stable even when Devourer weapons tried to erase them from existence. Her dimensional scanners tracked enemy movements across multiple layers of folded space. Everything she had developed during the silent years was working better than she had dared hope. The tide of battle turned completely within 30 minutes of human arrival. Devourer ships that had seemed invincible were burning and breaking apart under quantum fire. The purple energy beams that had destroyed alien worlds were being absorbed and redirected by human shield systems. Enemy vessels that tried to escape found their retreat routes blocked by human ships that appeared from nowhere to cut them off. Commander Kex Yara watched in amazement as the human fleet systematically dismantled an enemy that had defeated the combined might of galactic civilization. The same species his grandmother had exiled as too dangerous was now saving everyone she had ever cared about. The irony was so complete it was almost beautiful. The aliens had rejected humanity out of fear, and now their fear was the only thing standing between them and extinction. Prime Minister Vex Thara received a direct transmission from President Katie Sullivan as the last Devourer ships were being destroyed. The human leader appeared on her screen looking calm and confident despite the chaos of the battle outside. Her message was simple and devastating. She said humanity was offering aid to save innocent lives, but would not be asking permission to do so. She said the galaxy could learn to work with humans as equals or face the next Devourer attack alone. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted forever in the space of one battle. The species that had been exiled for being too violent had returned as the only force capable of protecting galactic civilization from total annihilation. The aliens who had once feared human aggression now owed their continued existence to that same aggression turned against their enemies. Admiral Torres opened a fleet-wide channel and spoke to his captains as alien ships limped back toward the space station. He told them this was just the beginning. The main Devourer force was still out there and would be back. The real war was about to start, and humanity would fight it on their own terms. 1 year later, the Great Hall on Station Nexus Prime looked completely different than it had during the day humanity was exiled. The chamber had been expanded and redesigned to accommodate new members who had earned their place through blood and sacrifice rather than politics and tradition. Where once 43 alien species had looked down on a single human ambassador, now 44 species sat together as equals in the new Galactic Alliance. President Katie Sullivan stood in the center of the hall where Jake Morrison had once faced rejection and exile. But she was not here as a supplicant begging for readmission to alien society. She was here as Earth's first galactic ambassador, representing the species that had saved civilization itself. The title meant something different now because the organization itself had been transformed by necessity and human influence. The Devourer threat had been eliminated through a campaign that required unprecedented cooperation between human technology and alien resources. Admiral Ben Torres had shared command of the combined fleet with Zilani Admiral Yexandra in a partnership that would have been impossible under the old Council system. Human ships had provided the advanced weapons and tactics, while alien vessels contributed numbers and local knowledge. Together they had tracked down every Devourer fleet and eliminated the extragalactic threat permanently. Captain Maya Rodriguez now commanded the first truly integrated crew in galactic history. Her ship carried humans and aliens working side by side using combined technology that neither species could have developed alone. The cultural exchange programs that had begun during the war were producing remarkable results. Human creativity was merging with alien precision to create innovations that neither group had imagined possible. Commander Kex Yara had become Prime Minister of the Zilani Republic after his grandmother died during the evacuation of their homeworld. His first official act was to formally apologize for the Council's treatment of humanity and request human assistance in rebuilding Zilani civilization. The young leader had learned from his grandmother's mistakes and understood that pride was a luxury his people could no longer afford. The new Galactic Accords were being signed today, and they were unlike any agreement in the history of interstellar politics. Instead of the rigid hierarchy that had characterized the old Council, this document established true equality among all member species. It included human concepts like individual rights and freedom of movement that many aliens were still learning to understand. Most importantly, it recognized that diversity was strength rather than weakness. Dr. Elena Vasquez had established research centers throughout former Council space where human quantum technology was being shared with alien scientists. The partnerships were producing breakthroughs that accelerated the pace of discovery beyond anything either group had achieved alone. Her reality manipulation research was now being used to heal worlds damaged by Devourer attacks and restore ecosystems that had been thought permanently destroyed. Engineer Tony Kim oversaw construction of the new generation of Alliance ships that incorporated design elements from every member species. The vessels were larger and more powerful than anything humans had built alone, but they retained the technological advantages that had made human intervention possible. The shipyards where these vessels were constructed employed workers from dozens of different worlds, creating bonds between species that had never existed before. General Alex Morgan had transformed his defense networks from human-only installations into the backbone of galactic security. The quantum sensor systems that had once protected only Earth now monitored the entire galaxy for new threats. The early warning networks could detect hostile fleets while they were still weeks away from any inhabited system. Never again would civilization be caught unprepared for existential danger. The signing ceremony began with speeches from leaders of every Alliance species. Each one acknowledged the mistakes of the past and promised to build something better for the future. The Thraxi Queen spoke about learning to appreciate human emotional responses that she had once considered primitive. The Mordak Elder discussed how human urgency had taught his people that slow deliberation was not always wise. Even the peaceful Verdani had come to understand that sometimes violence was necessary to protect innocent life. Prime Minister Kex Yara delivered the most important speech of the day. He formally apologized for the arrogance and fear that had led to humanity's exile. He admitted that the Council had been wrong about human nature and had nearly doomed the galaxy through their pride. He said the old system had been designed to maintain the status quo, but the new alliance would be built to embrace change and growth. President Sullivan's response was measured and thoughtful. She said humanity had never wanted to be separate from galactic civilization, but had learned to thrive in isolation when separation was forced upon them. She said humans were pleased to rejoin the galactic community, but would never again accept being treated as junior partners or potential threats. She said the new alliance would succeed because it was based on mutual respect rather than mutual fear. The actual signing took place in an atmosphere of genuine hope and excitement. Each species leader added their mark to the document using traditional methods from their homeworlds. Humans signed with ink pens, while Zelani used light stylus that burned their names into the metal. Thraxi pressed their claws into specially prepared surfaces, while Mordak carved their symbols with tools older than human civilization. When the ceremony ended, representatives from all 44 species mingled freely in the Great Hall. Humans shared stories of their technological developments during the exile years, while aliens explained how their societies had changed during the crisis. Young beings from different worlds played together using games that combined rules from multiple species. The barriers that had once seemed insurmountable were dissolving through simple contact and communication. The new Galactic Alliance faced many challenges in the days ahead. Rebuilding worlds destroyed by devourer attacks would take decades of coordinated effort. Integrating 44 different legal systems and cultural traditions would require patience and compromise from everyone involved. Some species would undoubtedly resist the changes and try to return to the old ways of doing things, but the foundation was solid now. Humanity had proven that the galaxy was stronger with them than without them. The aliens had learned that diversity and change were sources of strength rather than weakness. The new alliance was built on genuine partnership rather than the careful balance of fear and pride that had characterized the old council. President Sullivan looked around the Great Hall one last time before leaving for Earth. In 40 years, the chamber had gone from a place where humanity was rejected to a place where humanity was welcomed as an equal partner in galactic civilization. The journey had been painful for everyone involved, but it had led to something better than anyone had dared imagine. The galaxy was no longer the same, and that was exactly as it should be.